Hello, and welcome back to the Midgar Press. My name's Jay. So today I'm going to tell you about a recap from a session I had at LexiCon. Now I know what you're thinking. LexiCon was, I don't know, April. Yeah, I know, guys. I I've had a lot going on. Been preparing for a lot of different things, been doing a lot of different things. So yes, it has slipped in my mind, but I took down some notes. I legit wrote some notes of what happened within the sessions, and I wanted to. And I'm not going to recap every session that I run. I will not do that to you all. But I will recap you all with just a couple of the sessions here and there from the cons that I go to, because there are some that are memorable. Some just, whatever, but there are some that are memorable. Let's just say that. So let's go ahead and begin. So at LexiCon back on April 22nd of this year, I ran Bothlid's Lode for a group of adventurers. Now, if I remember correctly, there was it was a father and son. There was my friend Andy, who's part of my local area, and then there was two other people. They're just good friends. They just happened to sign up for the game as well. Now, I don't remember what anybody really was. I just remember Andy was a wizard. Now, the reason I only remember that is because this was a near TPK. It was almost a total party kill, but it was completely on them because, well, I'll explain the whole situation to you. Okay. So first, they entered into the mine, Bothlid's Lode. They were wary. They were, kind of taking their time, one could say. But they decided that they would rush in because one of them happened to roll a very good awareness, and they could see that there was goblins all the way through on the other side of the porpoise. So they rush in, and the goblins upstairs in the guard room had no time to react to this. So let me get y'all to the map. They rushed all the way through. So the goblins that were up here in number 6 in the guard room, they had no chance to, pour oil on them or anything like that. Which, I mean, kind of works out. And whatnot, but they rushed through, and there's twice as many goblins as there are player characters. So I had a total of 5 players. So there was 10 total goblins within room 3, within Bothlid Square, this giant area right here. And they quickly dispatch all of the goblins. Like they rolled very well. I was very excited for them because they were getting to test the combat system. And then they did what all the parties do. They split up. Some of them went to number 4, some of them went to number 5. So you know how that goes. And it honestly didn't go that bad for them, because when they went to room 4, they didn't encounter any goblins or anything like that because there's none in there. So they instantly started going up the staircase, in which case they encountered the goblins within room 6. Now, the other party that went down to room 5, they did encounter, a goblin and a warg. It took them a moment, but they were able to defend off because the warg is considered a monster, so it was automatically hitting. But it was throwing them left and right. So they quickly dispatched of them there, and then they ran up here to 6, where they were closing in on the other party, finishing up the goblins up there. Now, what they decided to do was let one go. Why? I don't know. But they did. And the goblin ran down here into 5. Now, part of the situation in room 5 is there are warg pups, like little dogs, down here in this corner, okay, in this bottom right corner. I have not had a single party encounter those yet because they don't look hard enough, or if they do decide to look, they fail on the roll, so it doesn't work out for them, so they don't see it. So essentially, instead of the goblin, I rolled for it. I did an odds or evens, and I told myself, either A, goblin goes into the mine to let Maladuke know what's going on, or B, grabs the cubs or the pups and runs away. And that's what happened. As the party was looking out these like little portholes right here and whatnot, they saw the goblin running away with 3 ward pups in its arms, and they were like, oh wait, we could have had puppies. And I was like, that's a whole thing. Yeah, sure. That would have been entertaining to say the least. Yeah, that would have been entertaining to say the least. But no, they let one goblin survive. Again, I'm not sure why, but they did. And it ran away with the cubs, or the little warg pups. So they decided to come down here back into room 3, the Bothlid Square, the grand hall that it is, and they closed the doors right here to the mine. And they decided to take a little stretch rest because they've been in some combat. They've done face down like half, so 15, 16 goblins. And I mean, that's quite a bit, especially even if they have to roll to hit. I mean, I can get lucky on my rolls, it can still happen. Like the player characters could still potentially get really hurt. So they ended up taking a stretch rest, just a short 15 minutes. They regain, the 1d6 HP, the 1d6 willpower, and remove 1 condition, unless they decide to use a memento and they get 2d6. So they decided to short rest. Now, after they short rested, they had to, because they barricaded the door, they put like the short swords from the goblins underneath the door, so that way it kind of prevents it from opening, which I thought was pretty genius. So they removed the short swords, they opened the doors, and they are looking into the mine. Now, as they're looking into the mine, they're like, ooh, we can't see anything. I'm like, yeah, because it's dark. I was like, you're gonna have to light a torch if y'all wish to go down there. So the wizard, being the one that, has a free hand, went ahead and lit a torch. And somebody else lit a torch too. I can't remember who it was, but somebody else did. So then they made their way into the mine. Now this is where it gets fun, because I love the roll tables on this adventure, because some of it can't happen until you get down here in the mine, and some of it can happen. Now, as they were walking, I rolled as they got close to, the first bottomless water, and it happened to come upon the luring light. So one of the players started to walk down there. They stopped because and they stopped at the very last second too. Let me say that, because they stopped at the very last second. One of the player characters like shook them and was like, "What are you doing?" So then they rolled again, and they succeeded that time. But they came up and they decided to go left. So they went over here to room 8, which is the Glimmer Shaft. That's where Bothlid herself is. So yeah, they talked to Bothlid. Bothlid explained to them how much she herself hates goblins and orcs, how she hates the Nightkin, how they're defiling her mine. and she wishes them gone. Which, I mean, obviously, who wouldn't? But here's the thing. She couldn't do anything about it. So she told the players, if you clear out these goblins and the orcs, I will give you the treasure. And she's like, I'll tell you where the treasure is. Now, she doesn't necessarily tell them that there are traps, because it's one of those things like if they're clever enough to defeat all the orcs and the goblins, they should be clever enough to know that there's traps. It's kind of like her mentality for that situation. So she'll never tell any player character about the traps unless they can persuade her to tell her or tell the player characters everything. But that's only if. Okay, that's only if. So the players are like, yeah, sure, we'll do this. Of course, of course. So they instantly start to continue on. They get to about right here. This first, this number 7 right here. And I tell you, great things happened, okay? Because I mean, I always hope for the luring light. I always hope for that because it's hilarious when their characters just walk into the water with no emotion whatsoever. They're just drawn to it, and it's hilarious. So we got to about there, and it was like cascading something. What is it? Nope, that's the White Beast or the White Death. So they had the collapse where part of the floor vanishes beneath the player character. They have to roll a successful evade. This character did not. He did not roll a successful evade, and he got swept up by the swirling water and ended up in another room. Now, it says GM decides which one. I didn't like that. So I just rolled for it. What I did was I looked at all the bottomless areas, and I was like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 6 areas. Why don't I roll for it? And that's what I did. I rolled for it. I got a 4 because he ended up over here. The player character did. So the rest of the characters continued on this way while the other one was swept up underneath here. And it worked out perfect because this player character also had heavy chainmail on. So they could not swim very well. They were swimming at a bane. So they're just floundering this entire time in the water. And you know what that does, right? You already know. It attracts the White Death. So the great sea serpent, and I basically told all the players, I was like, okay, if you all need a bathroom break or need to go get something to drink, now's the time. The next 10 to 15 minutes is going to be solely for him. And he was just like, let's do this. So a couple of people left real quick just to go use the restroom and whatnot. But, so the White Death was called. And I allowed for the player character to get to the shore right here. Right here, closest to 9, to the antechamber. But unfortunately, the White Death rolled Constriction, which grabs the White Death, the sea serpent, coils its tail around the player character. So basically, the player character gets dragged into the water and then dragged down. Okay. Then, after another roll or two, it came up as Devour. So then, of course, the sea serpent lets go of the player character, but then devours them. So the player was actually attacking the White Death, the sea serpent, from within the belly, and they were getting pretty close. The hit points on the White Death is no joke, but the player character was doing really well. I think it was within 10 of being at 0, but the player character lost this fight, and his character died in a tragic epic moment of survival within the belly of the beast. So the rest of the player characters continue on like, well, there goes Bob. Oh well, can't do nothing about that. It was funny. So yeah, the rest of the player characters they continue on, okay? So they continue on through here until you get like right in this like passageway for leading to number 11. Because when you get there, there's Moladuke herself. There's 2 orcs. There's multiple goblins. There's multiple wargs. Okay. And at this moment, there's only 4 players now. 1 has died. Okay, so there's only 4 players. Now they decided they were going to try and sneak up. They actually did do a pretty well sneak attack, because when they rushed in, they actually killed 2 orcs. They crit. One player critted on 1, and then the other 3 attacked the other one and killed out the orcs outright. So it was just Moladuke, the goblins in the room, and the wargs. Now the problem was that 3 of the players were close combat, and then the wizard hung back. So the wizard could quickly escape if needed. But it came to Moladuke's turn, and Moladuke walked up using the long spear and shoved it up one of the player characters and crit. Yeah, that was an instant death. I'd never done that before. It was an instant death for the player character. So now let me recap. 2 player characters dead, 2 close combat right next to Moladuke, and then the wizard like right here in the tunnel. Okay, so then the goblins come up. The goblins take one of the player characters down, and the wargs, they didn't even move. They just continued eating their food. Like, I didn't even have to involve them. It was that bad. So now we've got 3 player characters down, 1 up close, and then 1 far back. So it comes around to the player's turn, and we're rolling death saves for the 2 that are, trying to fight Moladuke and her horde, her clan. Doesn't really work out for them. But the other one that was in there that was close combat was like, all or nothing. Just goes in and charges, takes out one of the goblins. I will say that. Takes out one of the goblins. But the wizard's like, nope, runs. So the wizard just takes their turn and runs all the way back through. Now it takes a couple turns because they only had, I think, like 8 movement. But they did dash. So 8 meters is 4 squares. So if they dash, that's 8 squares. So it took them a couple turns to get all the way out. But Moladuke basically destroyed the last close combat character that was in that room. So now 4 player characters are dead. Well, 1's dead, 3 are on death save, and then 1 wizard running like no other. Just running. And once the wizard got to, right here where it's Bothlid Square, where they've got these large doors and whatnot, the wizard closes the doors and then takes the short swords and shoves them underneath the doors again. And this is to properly, like, not only close it, but to make sure they don't open. And then the wizard just goes and books it, runs. So that wizard will now become an NPC within my games because it's a surviving PC. But we did a little role play for the other 3 characters who were on death saves. Basically, Moladuke was, interrogating them. Why are you here? What are you doing? And the player characters, they didn't answer and whatnot. So Moladuke killed them. So So the module was not successful. The adventure was not completed. The player characters, they fucked around and they found out. Now they had a great idea. They ran in, they sneaked up on them. Okay. Now I had a group roll of a sneak attack and they succeeded. They killed 2 orcs outright. Orcs are pretty beastly. Okay. They are pretty heavy in combat, but they took 2 down. Now, the part that really messed them up was Moladuke. When Moladuke crit on her attack against one of the player characters, hey, the dice rolls, you can't make those up. You just can't make those up. The dice giveth, the dice taketh. This is how it goes, okay? So, yeah. It was a near TPK. It was a fantastic session. The players enjoyed it. They really had fun with the mechanics. They were laughing about it. It was a great time. It was really a great time. Yeah, no, it was fantastic. It made great for story. It really made great for story. So that was my first real memorable convention game. I'll tell you in another episode about the next day. I ran Bothlid's Lode again, and this time we only had, I think, 4 players, but that one was a TPK. So until next time, make sure you like this video, comment down below what was your favorite part, share this video with other people, and obviously subscribe. So until next time, live on and game on, my friends.